Join the Super Soldier Talk podcast this Saturday, July 13, 2024, between 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. for the first time ever and free Timeline of Disclosure Conference and Soul Healing Fair at Indian Rocks Beach Museum Park in St. Petersburg, Florida. We will start off the day's celebration with a memorial dedicated to deceased ufology experts and secret space program comrades. Do you want to learn what is really going on out there with UFOs and aliens? Then join us as our amazing speakers share more about their service in the secret space program. We will also have psychic readers. Afterwards, join our free crystal sound bowl healing ceremony. We will also have free dance classes, and at the end of the day, a costume contest. Upgrading to a VIP Timeline of Disclosure Conference Pass will allow you to listen and meet more Secret Space Program whistleblowers. The VIP conference begins a day before the Soul Healing Fair on Thursday, July 11th and Friday, July 12th at the Harborside Holiday Inn in Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. VIP ticket holders can also join us for the after party on Sunday, July 14th. Come show your support for individuals who have been abused in these top secret clearance programs as we co-create a timeline of disclosure for humanity.
Well, hello there. Thank you, everybody, for sitting through that. That's our conference coming up here in July. So maybe I need to drop the music just a little bit lower, but those beats are just, they go in pretty hard. So yeah, come on out to Timeline of Disclosure and the Soul Healing Fair in St. Petersburg, Florida. The tickets are on sale till July 11th, but you can get a VIP, the package that includes food until the 4th of July. So I'd love to meet you this summer. And yeah, also, if you want to learn more about some of the work that we do here at Super Soldier Talk, you can go to supersoldiertalk.com. There's a subscribe form. So I actually recommend you subscribe there rather than here on YouTube because of all the censorship. Because, you know, it hasn't been easy. I've talked about this in the past. I think I have 12 strikes or 13. I can't even keep track anymore. But get a copy of my book at Neological Tech, and also get yourself a meditation cube. So these meditation cubes, everybody wants to see it. UFOs are real. These meditation cubes are based on sacred geometry. They have pyramids on the inside. There's 6 of them. They all point inward inside this box. And then there's a sphere here with different, the skullum has 13 crystal skulls and other crystals inside there. So it's based on shape power. Anything that's cone or pyramid shape produces chi energy. So yeah. And it also helps support Super Soldier Talk. So you can, if you don't want a cube, though I hope you get one, but you can also donate to Healing Soul Survivors. So, all right, enough of that. Let's get to business. Jimmy, are you there? Oh,
I'm here.
How are you doing today?
Real good, James.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on here. I know it's getting a little late here. Eastern Seaboard, but the message that Jimmy has to share is worth it. So we're going to begin with his bio here. So today, Jimmy will be speaking about Father Pellegrino Ernetti Chronovisor. So he was a Vatican priest that found that they could measure sounds in the past. I think it was like chants in a monastery. And they were able to use this device to look into time. So Jimmy actually knew Father Ernetti, and he'll be talking about that today. So Super Soldier Agent Jimmy Paine, a.k.a. Dallas, was in the secret space program from 1959 to 1996. During this time, he was a shuttlecraft pilot for the Tall White Warriors at Area 51 and participated in time travel missions with the Montauk Boys at Camp Hero. He also recalls working for Weyland Corporation, where he encountered a xenomorph at LV-426, which the movie Aliens was based off of. He was stationed on Mars, Titan, and the Moon. On Mars, he has seen a broken statue of a giant face of a humanoid on a mission in 1974 along with Duncan O'Finoian. He remembers seeing Tommyknockers in a cave on Mars, which are a muscular type of grays. On the moon of Titan, he was stationed in a massive underground facility. He was tasked with fighting the monster they called It. It looked like a junior Montauk monster, a type of Bigfoot or Sasquatch that would gain strength by attacking him. He was also on a secret mission from Vandenberg Air Force Base on the lunar Apollo 20 mission with William Rutledge, where they discovered a Oriental-looking humanoid named EBE, or EB Mona Lisa. Jimmy claims that the Apollo 20 footage on YouTube is real, so we have done a show about that, but I think we might be doing another one coming soon, right, Jimmy? About Apollo 20?
Yes.
Because you want to talk about that? You've located some files.
I've located a good many files, over 1,000 pages.
So, we'll say that for another. I know I'm itching to talk about William Rutledge, but let's focus here on the Chronovisor. So, let's begin with what do you know about the Chronovisor? First of all, tell us what it is and how does it work, Jimmy?
Well, the Chronovisor is basically an amplifier, and it goes and it picks up vibrations from the past. It's a resonator. Kind of looks like a TV, and it can it's like cutting on the TV and seeing a program in black and white. That is, there's no sound. Later, the sound was gotten up, but when I was there, the sound wasn't quite. All the bugs weren't worked out of the sound system.
Okay, let me share this image here. So, Jimmy, is this what the Chronovisor looks like there on the left there?
No, that's not what it looked like. It was more crude, similar to a TV back in the 40s.
And this TV, okay, so they could tune into the past. How far in the past could they go theoretically?
Well, I know we went back at least to 63 BC. There was a speech given to the Roman Senate.
And wasn't there like a play that was lost in history, and they were able to actually get the words for it?
Yes, there was a play that they got. They also picked up several other recordings from the past. James, they picked up several other ones from the past as well.
And that was I just looked it up. Thyestes Lost Play, written by So I was actually trying to pull this up. Okay. All right. Well, let me pull this up here to give the audience members a little background about the Chronovisor. I also got an image there to show you about witnessing Jesus Christ, right? Because for some reason, one of the first things when any of these secret projects get a hold of time travel, they always go back to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. I guess they all want to confirm that's all real. So let's go over here. It's coming. Oh gosh, okay, I clicked the wrong button here. I'm gonna get there. Everybody, stay patient. All right, I will make this bigger, and I am sorry about the ads. Maybe I can make that go. There we go. Oh, all right. We just have to live with it. I know. Okay, so a priest in the Vatican named Pellegrino Ernetti claimed he could observe the past with a time machine that he invented. But the truth is, let's go back here. Okay, from the unsolved disappearance of Emilia Orlandi in 1983, a covert collection of documents known as the Apostolic Archive, the Vatican history is full of secrets, and all the Vatican purported secrets, none may be more bizarre than the legend of the Chronovisor. The Chronovisor, guys, I'm so sorry about that. The Chronovisor is said to be a device that gives a user the ability to see through time. Though the existence of the Chronovisor has never been proven, a 2002 book by Vatican priest Father Francois Brune says otherwise. So that's a picture of Father Ernetti. Is it Ernetti?
Ernetti.
Okay. Who allegedly helped build the Chronovisor, was a Benedict monk, and a scientist and exorcist. So according to Brune, the Chronovisor was developed by Father Ernetti. Ernetti allegedly kept the device. Oh gosh, this thing is. Maybe I should get try another browser. Anyway, Ernetti allegedly kept the device secret until the early 1960s, when he confided in Brune and told him that 12 scientists, including the famous physicist Enrico Fermi and former Nazi scientist Werner von Braun, helped him build it. Is that true, Jimmy?
Yeah. Yes.
So
Every bit of that.
Did you actually meet Enrico Fermi and Werner von Braun?
I knew von Braun personally, and I have met the priest.
Wow.
If you watch a movie by Russell Crowe, he plays a priest that does exorcisms, and that's based off of this priest here.
Oh, we have the cryptid hunters. Hey, so I guess Jessica wasn't able to make it. I guess you figured it out already. We went and did the show without you, but maybe we could do another follow up on this. If anybody has more questions about the Chronovisor, we could just go over different topics. We'll bring Jessica back, because I know she wanted to talk about the Mona Lisa. Remember on the moon?
Yeah, I'm not ready for that tonight. I want to stay with the Chronovisor because we've got some interesting information coming out on it tonight.
All right. So the Chronovisor was made of cathode rays tubes, an antenna, and metals that received sound and light signals on all wavelengths. The Chronovisor reportedly allowed the team of scientists to document events of the past, including the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The machine, therefore, could validate the teachings of the Bible simply by providing a first-hand look into the past. So the Chronovisor was allegedly built by a Nazi. So that
he was involved in it as well.
Did you meet Fermi?
Yes, I met him. I was more familiar with Van Allen, but I've met him before as well.
Braun. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow, Jimmy. You don't have to actually tell us how old you are, but you're like Forrest Gump out there. The disclosure committee. Okay, the de facto resource on the Chronovisor is Brune's 2002 book, La Nouvelle Mystère du Vatican. In it, Brune explains how he met Father Ernetti on a boat ride across the Venice's Grand Canal in the early 1960s. Like Brune, Ernetti was well-versed in the history of ancient languages, which made for natural conversation. But soon, Ernetti directed their chat towards science. Brune had been expounding on many ways in which the Christian Bible could be interpreted when Ernetti suggested he had access to the truth via a time travel machine. Ernetti claimed that he and a group of renowned scientists came together in a mutual quest to uncover the past. One scientist was Fermi, who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1938. Another was the ex-Nazi von Braun, whose work at NASA got America to the moon. And he also got the spinning wheel stations. So I don't know if anybody remembers those pictures, drawings from the 1960s. So they did build those things. Nazi turned not okay. According to Ernetti, the device had several antennae, 3 of which were made of mysterious metals that picked up sound and light waves across their entire respective spectrums. A direction finder on the device was already allegedly tuned into the specific era one wanted to view, while the screen displayed. So the screen displayed it, and a recording device captured footage. So Jimmy, can you describe what you saw? This directional finder. So,
you mean how it worked?
I mean, we know we had like a black and white television. Did you have like a computer that would tune into it, or I mean, how would you come to the exact time that you want to view?
Well, first of all, we have to back up the story a good bit before we go forward. Now, when I'm going to bring attention, James, to a company called Philco. Now, the Philco company made radios for the consumers back in the 30s and 40s, and when the war broke out, they applied for a contract, or should I say, they were asked to build a radio for the military, and one of the first contracts they had was building a radio to go inside of a tank. Now, the problem with a radio in a tank is that you have a lot of heavy metal, and but they were successful in building a radio for the military tank. Now, they also tinkered with an early form of radar. The Weyland Corporation, they part of that company, some of their scientists broke off and they formed the Weyland Corporation. But before that, they were tinkering around with cataract tubes. And where this physicist comes in at is, if you go back to when the Philadelphia experiment was going on back in the 40s, it was actually invented in the 40s, the chronovisor, but they were really working on, like I said, invisibility. So it was really invented in the 40s. So all the bugs weren't worked out of it. They had the picture, but they didn't have the sound at that point. Now, when I came along, I want to tell a story. I don't want to get off the subject, but I need to tell a story about my personal life, detailing how I got involved with the Spear of Destiny, and explain where I'm coming from. When I was about 8 years old, the men in black, you have to start off training your replacements very young. So at 8 years old, about the only thing you could do is like answer the phone for those men when they left out of the office. So I grew up at Area 51, being around these men. But when I was about 8 years old, they started telling me, they said, look, we have this sword that we're very interested in, and it's guarded by a warlock. Of course, this is a fabricated story that I'm being told. And And they said that, they talked about this for about 2-3 weeks about the sword, and that it had great power. And they wanted me to steal it for them. So they took some blueprints of the building, and it had a ventilation system in it. And of course, to train to train a minute MIB, they have to know how to read blueprints. So they taught me how to read blueprints. They lay the blueprint out, and they ran their finger down the air ducts, and they showed me where I had to crawl through. And of course, they told me, they showed me where the electrical lines were in the building. So I learned how to read blueprints very young. So the day came that they brought me to this underground base, and I was supposed to go in through the air ducts and obtain this sword for them. So I entered the air ducts and went down into to this base, and went through
wait, Jimmy, where was this base?
I'd rather not give that location right now. It's sensitive.
Well, did you have to travel in time to get it?
No.
Okay.
No. This is a underground base. I don't want to give the location.
Well, could you give us the country it was in, or is that still too
I would put it in, I would just say that it's in the Western Hemisphere. I won't go say the North Pole, the South Pole, but I would say the Western Hemisphere.
Did the Nazis have it?
That's another sensitive question. But let me get on with my story here, because we have a lot to cover tonight. So I ended up taking the air duct out, climbing through the screen, and I got into this room, and there was this table with blue velvet on the top of it, and there laid a sword on top of this blue table, and then in the corner of the room there was a spear. It was up in the corner, and it was carefully laid out. So I went over to the sword, and I looked at it. The sword was about 2.5 feet long, and it was in a holster. Now, what was unique about this sword was that it had a pouch on the side of the housing. It was like somebody had added on to the sword. So this pouch, it had a square nail in it, and there was a chain that was beaten into the top of this square nail, like a blacksmith would merge two pieces of metal together. So I pulled the nail out. It was a square nail, probably about 5 inches long, maybe 6. And of course, it was still attached to the chain. The head of this nail was, and the nail had dried blood on it. Now, so I put it back into the little pouch on the side of the housing that the sword went in. And then I pulled the sword out, and the sword was beat up. You could tell it had a few dings to it, that it was handmade in a blacksmith shop. And it had also blood on it, dried blood. So I held it in my hand. Nothing happened. So I put it back into the holster, and then I went over to the corner of the room, and I picked the spear up. And the spear also had a little bit of blood on it. Now, about that time when I had gotten, my hands on both the spear and the sword, I was going to leave the room with it. And I went down several, I was trying to get back up into the air duct system. But before I could get back in the air duct system, this warlock came in. I had been warned about this warlock. And
but you said you didn't believe it. You didn't think
I didn't believe it. Because see, first of all, when you have an extraterrestrial experience, it breaks your religion. I have a dual religion. I'm part Roman Catholic, part Native American Paiute. We have two religions. Most of us have dual religions. All right, but I'm leery of warlocks because warlocks are into Satanism. Okay.
So what is the definition of a warlock in your own opinion?
A male witch. He's a male witch. Colonel Quino was a warlock. A lot of people didn't know that. I knew Colonel Quino when I grew up, but I don't want to get into that right this moment. So this warlock chases me through the underground base through several rooms. And I went into one room where I got cornered up. And he started talking about the Spear of Destiny. Now, I had never heard of it called the Spear of Destiny up to that time. I just knew it was a sword and a spear. And he rambled on with some medieval chants. He was chanting about, I presume he was chanting about trying to bring a demon into the room. But by that time, in the room, there was a time machine similar to the time tunnel at Camp Hero, Montauk. A little different, but it was the same type of machine. And he cut it on, and when he cut it on, there was a gravitational pull in the room. And it was so strong it pulled the buttons off my shirt, 2 or 3 of my buttons off the shirt, and I was leaning away from it because it was just sliding me across the floor. It had a great gravitational pull to it, but it ended up. What had happened was, it was really a test. See, the men in black wanted to observe me because they had cameras in all the rooms. So the warlock, or the alleged warlock, and the men in black, this is all staged. But what they was wanting to know was I was kind of psychic back then. They wanted to know if I picked up anything from this Spear of Destiny, which I didn't. Now, I later found out as I was growing up that Hitler, as a young man, would visit a museum, and there was the Spear of Destiny in this museum, and he would go in there for hours at a time and just look at this spear. So I believe what happened was, after the war was being lost, this spear, this sword, was removed from the museum and came into possession of the men in black. So it definitely was, somebody was crucified with the sword, and also the spear had punctured someone. But now the real Spear of Destiny, and this is wrote in no books. So tonight I'm going to reveal something about the spear of destiny that no one knows. The real spear of destiny is magnetized. If you were to pick up the spear of destiny, it would attract. It's like a magnet. Okay. Now, that's how I knew it wasn't the real spear of destiny. It was simply, it was a sword and it was a spear used during the Roman times, but it was not the one that crucified Jesus. So I think what happened many years after the war, the Men in Black had this, and they want to know, was it the real one? And it wasn't. Now I think that played into why I was picked later on for this mission, James. But I'm going to get back now to
Well, does that what it looked like, Jimmy?
Yes, but it had a rod. It had a wood rod to it.
Huh. Okay, so you retrieve the spear, and
no, by the time that the test was over, the Man in Black showed up in the room. A little while later. It was simply a test. I'm 8 years old. They really wanted to know, did I pick up any type of vibrations off of this sword and this spear? And I did not.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that, Jimmy. So okay, go ahead.
I'm going to go back now to around about 1968. Around 1968, I'm out at Frenchman Flats, Nevada, at Area 51 at Nellis. And I am in the office, and I had come in off of guard duty. And while I was in there, another gentleman came in, another MIB. He's a few years senior from me. And he spoke with the supervisor on duty. And it started off, he said, look, I've just got through talking, well, not talking, I just got through communicating with little Grays. And they had been wanting to know, did the little Grays record anything from the John F. Kennedy assassination? This man that came into the guardhouse, he was MIB, but he came over from the John F. Kennedy administration. He had been there since the early 1960s. And when he went in there and he was talking to my supervisor, he said that when they were communicating, when he was communicating with the little Grays just happened to state out, and we also have a recording of Jesus Christ. So it kind of caught this MIB off guard, because he had went in there to communicate, to ask about, did the little Grays have anything on JFK, and they did, but they also added that they had Jesus crucifixion. All right. Well, at this point, the supervisor said, "Well, see if they'll give it to us, and if so, get back with me." So it started off as just a kind of a frank conversation between two MIBs, and I'm in the room overhearing it. Okay.
And you were how old at this point?
That was 1968. So I would have been about 12 years old. And not around about 12 years old, 1968.
And Jimmy, were they allowing you to go home at the end of the day after work?
Well, I lived out there at Nellis Air Force Base.
Well, what about your parents? Didn't they?
My parents knew it, but let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
And this way we can address all that. Now, I was abducted when I was like 4.5 years old, and my father talked to President Eisenhower. Now, Eisenhower, I was abducted about 4 or 5 months prior to the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. I was abducted by the same aliens that abducted Betty and Barney Hill. Now, Eisenhower, when he spoke to my parents, he said, you know, Jimmy can be a great interest to us, and we need to learn everything we can about these extraterrestrials. And my father and Eisenhower agreed it would be in my best interest if I spent all my free time at Area 51. So during the when I was out of school during the summers or the holidays, or I would go and live at Area 51 amongst these extraterrestrials. But let me get back on the story here, James. Now, about a year passed, it comes up. It might have been the end of 1968 or either early 1969, but I want to put it towards 1968, right around about Thanksgiving. Eisenhower was going to have, he was going to go out into the desert. He had a secret base out at Area 51, and most of the people that it was built for he either started to die through the years. So it was built for something like about 280 people. So what they did,
is that for COG?
I'm sorry.
Is that for continuity of governance?
Yes. So they went ahead and assigned me to be with Eisenhower to go down into the base with him. That was the first time I'd done it. All right. So we went ahead and had the drill, and I spent a couple of days down in the base. But the first day after we had the drill, Eisenhower was up topside, and he was sitting in a Jeep talking to the men, and he started getting sick. And we thought it was his gallbladder, the way he was acting. And he had gotten a new driver that year, and the driver didn't know where the hospital was. So I got in the back of the truck, or the back of the Jeep, and showed the driver where we had the CAT scan machine. Now back then, CAT scan machines, this one was experimental. In fact, the CAT scan machine was invented at Area 51. But they brought him to the infirmary and they scanned him. And about an hour after he left, I got to talking to the intern that did the scanning. And he said that Eisenhower had a tumor he had a brain tumor by his he had a brain tumor about the size of a marble, maybe about 3/4 of an inch in diameter, a little spear. And they had sent him back to see his presidential doctors that following day. So what happened was when Eisenhower got sick, the men in black started talking directly to these little grays. And so you had two administrations. You had the Jeff Kennedy administration, the holdover from that administration, and then you had the administration from the Eisenhower administration. And they are
in 69.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
He died March 28th, 1969.
Yes. What happened was they started talking to these little grays, and they said, well, look, the little gray said, yes, we'll give you what we have on it. But it was agreed upon that we had to give them like 2,000 rubles. Red rubies, excuse me. They like red rubies. And they wanted also some crystals to be gave to them about the size of a potato. They use that in their warp drive systems, James. So they gave him all these rubies and these crystals.
So they're used to run their ships, energy.
The crystals are used in the engines for the warp drive. That's what operates the warp drive, are the crystals. They'll look like about the size of a potato that you buy in a grocery store, these crystals. Now the rubies, they use that like we use money. Okay. They used rubies like we used. Rubies means as much to them as diamonds do to women. Okay. They use rubies for money, for collateral. So it was agreed upon that with the chronovisor, you just don't cut it on and it works. You had for a TV, you had to have a camera. And it was agreed upon that the little grays would go back in time and set the camera up to feed the chronovisor. Okay? So that's how I got involved in it, at that point. Now, this didn't happen overnight. It started in 1968, and then in the early 70s, maybe in the very early 70s, maybe 72, I'm just guessing now, I went over to Rome, and I went to the Vatican, and I was in the archives. I was looking for inventions. I did find some inventions that Nikola Tesla had hid in the Vatican. Now, my primary function with the Men in Black is I'm interested in propulsion systems. That's what I'm interested in. But when I was in there pulling up these different inventions, I had pulled up about 5 or 6 inventions that Nikola Tesla had hid in the Vatican. When I got, word from HQ that said, look, we're pulling you out of the Vatican. You have to stop your research. Well, that's pretty important, but my orders was to leave the Nikola Tesla's papers at the Vatican and to get with this other MIB. And this other MIB that I was with was talking to the priest that me and you are discussing right now. And so, but my understanding of it is the Pope never knew anything about it. It was this priest, and it went up as high as a cardinal. So there was only two priests that knew about it. Other than now later, that Byrne wrote a book about a third priest, but I'm talking at this point, it was just this monk that knew about it at that point, James. Now, when all the information was gathered from it, and I actually saw Jesus walk down the street. See, I didn't build the chronovisor. I built one of the tubes in it. There were 7 or 8 tubes in the back of the TV. I built one of the tubes. The other tubes were built by other individuals, so it was compartmentalized.
Is that what you saw right there? Is that
no?
What it looked like?
It had a round tube about the size, about 10 inches in diameter. Okay. If you look at some of the real early radar tubes, cat-array tubes in radar stations, it was built from a cat-array tube that they would use at a radar station, like Camp Hero. It was a radar station there. It was made out of a round cat-array tube, and it was in a wooden box that the Philco Corporation had built. It was basically modified. It was a modified Philco TV, is what it was. It was modified.
Did it have those rare earth elements, or maybe we should?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It did. It did. I won't name the rare earth element because there may be. I don't want to start a stampede tonight. I'll put it that way. But yeah, there were rare earth in the metals in the vacuum tubes of that television.
And do you want to talk about the tall whites in that, or should we just move on?
I'm going to move on to how I got how my other mission was involved in it. Now, after I saw Jesus walk down the street, of course, it was totally silent at that point. We still had not worked out the sounding system in it. Okay. We were going to go on a mission. This came about at Camp Hero, that I was going to go back in time. There was going to be more than me. There was another Montauk boy. I'm not sure if I want to say his name tonight.
Well, is it somebody in the public sector that we already know?
It's somebody you already know that you talk about, but I haven't talked to him about it. But this Montauk boy had took a syringe, and he was going to get some of Jesus's blood while he was on the cross. Okay.
Is it Stuart Swirlo?
I'm just going to tell you.
Duncan. It was Duncan Cameron, I bet.
No, I'm not going to say a name tonight.
Okay.
But we had one that was going to go back and get the blood before death, DNA samples. All right. Now, when I went
they
back,
also had a gun, right? They brought a.
James, we're not going to go. Don't add to the story. Just listen to the story, because you'll get yourself confused if you start adding. I went back. I did the time jump back, and I came down near the Sea of Galilee in Israel. And when I came down, He was real rugged, like you know, it's just real rural. Okay.
Wait, so hold on, Jimmy. You walked through like a Delta T antenna, and you went through a portal, and now you're back in time.
I did a time jump at Camp Hero. Now the chronovisor, you can't do a time jump on a chrono. Only thing a chronovisor can do is like a TV. You can see the past. To go back in the past, you got to go back to Camp Hero to do a time
Tim,
jump.
don't get mad at me. I just want to ask a quick question. So can the chronovisor see into the future?
That particular one was modified to see into the past. Now they have one that does see into the future, but it's a more advanced model. But that has nothing to do with this one here.
All right, well, go on with the story. So you walk through this portal, and what is it like to go through a portal? Like, what do you see?
I'm going back to Camp Hero, and I did a time jump back. And when I came down within about within not that far from the Sea of Galilee. And when I came down, my orders were to go to Jesus's tomb and to get a blood sample, the after death blood sample. Okay. So I had a pouch on my belt that I had the syringe in. And but when I came down, I was probably about a mile from the tomb, maybe a little less. And I'm walking, it's not flat ground, it's real rugged, hilly, real hilly. Kind of like New Mexico, it's kind of rough land, sagebrush land. And when I was walking towards the quarry where Jesus's body was at, the temperature started to change, similar to like a storm is coming. Now, the temperature dropped down maybe 45 degrees or so, 40 degrees. It got kind of cool. And then I started to see like an eclipse occurring. So that we had some type of eclipse occurring in the sky. And
do you think it was the moon or maybe a mothership?
James, at the time, it just looked like an eclipse. I don't know anything about a spacecraft at this point. What I was thinking was that we had a disturbance out in space, basically an eclipse going on. But in the process of this eclipse, we had a small earth tremor. Nothing big, but maybe just something just enough that, could register that there was a little trembling going on in the ground. So we had an alignment going on out in space. I don't know how the planets, other planets were aligned, but I do know we had an eclipse with the sun and the moon. And what was strange about it was it turned to a blood red. I mean, it was just like if you put on a pair of red sunglasses and you saw everything in red. And then it changed to a blue, similar to the blue in the background of your screen there. Transparent, of course, but it was a deep blue, similar to what you have in the background of your screen on the internet tonight. All right, now by the time that I had made my way to the rock quarry, there was two stones. There was a round stone, looked like a stone you have at a mill, like you ground flour up with. kind of looked, it reminded me of one of those, but it was a round stone, maybe about 12 feet high, probably about 3 feet, maybe 4 feet wide. And it had, it had been rowed. I presume what they had done, they had dug in the side of a mound or a little small hill, and they had extracted the aggregate out of that hill, and that was his tomb. All right. So it was one big wheel laying to the side, had been rowed, and there was like a little smaller rock, maybe about waist high. I presume that was to lock it in place. Both of those stones was moved. Now, those stones had to weigh several tons. There's just no way that, I mean, you had to have a dozen or so people just to move that stone. And that is if they could roll it. You see? So when I went into the cave, I smelled, and this is my first thing that I noticed. I did smell like a body had been decaying. I did smell that. I didn't see anybody in there. I looked over, and they had dug out of the cave. They had a crude bed. Well, it wasn't a bed, but it was just dug out of the wall, a platform made out of the material, they had laid Jesus on. And Jesus' body was gone. But what was there was the burial cloth. So I couldn't get the blood sample from Jesus because Jesus wasn't there. So what I did, I collected the shroud.
The Shroud of Turin, but it wasn't in Turin though.
Well, we're going to get to the Shroud of Turin as well, but I collected the shroud, and I say the shroud might have been about 12 feet long, maybe about 3 feet wide. I'm just guessing. But I collected it, and there was blood all over it. Now I did not see a face on it at that point. It could have been there, but I didn't see it. All right. Now, once I collected the shroud, I went back out and I teleported back up. Went back to Camp Hero with the shroud. So there was DNA samples of Jesus' blood on that shroud.
But so you didn't like stick around longer to see maybe Jesus in person?
He was gone before I got there, James.
Did you ever go back on another mission to see him in person?
No, but I'm going to explain a little about that. Okay, so you have a certain amount of time you got to get back to point A to teleport back. Okay, the machines at Camp Hero can only hold the signal so long. The longer you stay, the more likely is you have a mishap at Camp Hero with the machines. So I had to go back out to be teleported back to Camp Hero with the shroud. My orders was to get blood samples of Jesus. I had the blood samples, not in the syringe, but I had them on the shroud. That's what I came there for. That was good enough for me. Okay, so we get back to Camp Hero. Now, let's go back and let's look at history. We know that history's been tampered with. We know that the spear of destiny wasn't a real spear. We know that the sword wasn't real. I didn't feel anything. So I knew that the spear of destiny was not in our possession. Okay, I've known that since I was 8 years old. Now, if you read your Bible, there was reports of Jesus. He was seen by 2 disciples up on the road going to Damascus. All right, the 2 disciples went back and told people that, hey, we just saw Jesus walking down the road. They thought they were crazy, you know. But a few days later, 10 or 11 of the disciples saw Jesus again. It was a whole crowd of them. So he was seen walking around. We know that from reading the Bible, that he was seen and witnessed walking around.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jimmy, for sharing that. So, you brought this sample back, and did it by touching the blood? Did it heal you? Did you get any?
It goes back to all the strangeness around it. Now when he was arrested and brought to court, he was performing miracles, raising the dead up. That's what got the eye of the state. He was raising the dead up, and he went to the first court. He was in the wrong court, so they refer him to another court. But
so are you saying it was more than just Lazarus? Maybe he resurrected maybe hundreds of people.
I know that he did one. He cured one person had leprosy. He did several miracles, James. It's in the Bible. I can't run them all down because I'm not that. I have dual religions, okay? I mean, I know a little about the Bible. I'm going by what I was trained to do, and what I was trained to do was to come back with the DNA samples. Now, could Jesus have been a future time traveler? Possibly. He could have had on an anti-gravity belt underneath his robe. Nobody knows that. Okay? Nobody knows that. The part about him walking around being seen, that's very unusual. And also, it was very odd that the eclipse occurred when what I witnessed. Of course, it could have been, like I said, the alignment of the planets. I'm like, I wanted to know the truth like everybody else. Could Jesus have been modified, genetically modified? Yes, I believe he probably was genetically modified.
Well, the Phoenix Journal state that his father was Semyace, so she's the head of one of these 12D Palladians, so she's actually hermaphrodite. And anyway, but we can't really confirm any of that. But apparently he's still alive as Sananda on the starship New Jerusalem. No.
Well, see, it goes back, James, all the mess that's going on in the Middle East right now. We have to be careful, like what I say tonight, because we don't want to get censored for anything. So I'm trying to explain it in a scientific way, but even I have kind of pegged out on this one. But I did see what I saw on the chronovisor, him walking down the street with the cross, him bloodied up. I did see that. And it is very true that the Vatican has the chronovisor. I think, like I said, there's a lot of secrets at the Vatican. particularly the Nikola Tesla files, and why the Vatican sits on this, I don't know.
Well, can you tell us, Jimmy, if you were looking through those Nikola Tesla files, what else was he working on?
James, only thing I can say is that I was looking for stuff on the propulsion systems that would help me when I got pulled off and reroute it to go with the MIBs on this chronovisor. I wasn't there. I wasn't there to investigate the chronovisor. I had never heard of the chronovisor at that point. Only thing I knew was the little Grays had recorded it. Now,
But do you think Nikola Tesla time traveled?
no, I don't think it had anything to do with what we're talking tonight.
Well, we're talking about time travel, so
we're not.
but
Nikola Tesla was involved in the Philadelphia experiment, yes, but as far as getting on the ship, no, he never stepped on that ship
because he was gone at this point in the 60s.
I've met Nikola Tesla on a time jump. I've talked to him. Nikola Tesla knew the dangers of standing in front of that radar, and he was part of the Philadelphia experiment. But the Philadelphia experiment had nothing to do with the chronovisor. I just was happening to be over in Rome when this all broke out.
All right, so Jimmy, you're going through the Vatican library, and and you find the chronovisor. Did you find anything else?
I didn't find the chronovisor in the library. I said I found some of Nikola Tesla's files, and that I was interrupted and ordered to cease and assist and go assist the other MIB who was building the chronovisor. The priest that we talk about tonight was involved in it, along with the physicist and an Italian rocket scientist was involved in it. And it goes back to one thing: who am I? Where did I come from? What happens to me when I die? I think at some point in everyone's life, we ask that of ourselves. Where do we go after we die?
And was the chronovisor able to look into that too?
The chronovisor, people want to know, was there really a higher being as Jesus? Now, you have to remember, I first heard about it in 68, and then in 69, Eisenhower's dead. You didn't think that went through his mind? You know, who am I? What happens to me? Where am I going when I die? Do you not think von Braun, he's at the height of his career? In 1969, he lands on the Apollo 11 lands on the moon. That was, this was just weeks before the moon landing. All this took place, James.
Wow.
So we have, like I said, we have a lot that was going on then.
Well, but could you answer do you have the information on that? Were they able to see heaven or hell realms on this chronovisor?
James, that's a good question, because the one who would have the most experience with it by now would definitely be the Vatican. Other words, let me tell you something unusual. Well, it's not unusual, but what most people don't realize. But when you read your Bible, there's never a time and a date. You have to remember, time is not marked after Jesus' death. BC AD. See, And so when we first got in to operate in the chronovisor, we didn't know the exact date that Jesus did die. We had to find that out from the little grays. The little grays were the ones that put the camera up for us. Without that camera, the chronovisor would have never worked. Okay.
Well, Jimmy, can you tell us the exact date that Jesus was crucified, if you know it?
Look at your calendar and go back 2,024 years, James.
And can you tell us what month and maybe day it was?
Just take your calendar and bring it back to 0.
So
Now,
it was Christmas Eve, to December 25th. I'm probably not.
You see, you have to look at it. You have the Roman calendar, you have the Maya calendar, you have all these different calendars. You know, the Chinese calendar. We all mark time differently because we mark time towards our history. Okay.
So it was it the birth of Jesus where the time started? What was it? The death? It was after the death, right? So that would have been in what, April for Easter?
When he died, there was no Easter. Easter didn't come about till way after he was dead. Okay. Now, I do know this about the chronovisor. When Jesus was like a child, maybe like 12 years old, maybe 10, he went down to a stream and he was playing in the mud. And the mud was kind of clayish. And he was making a little bird. He made a couple of birds with mud. And his father came up to him and asked him what he was doing. And he said that he was making birds. And he allegedly made the clay birds turn to biological beings and they flew off into real birds. Okay. That was the first known miracles when he was about 10 or 11 years old, when he's taking clay and turning it into an actual living creature.
Oh my gosh! Wow. But what did his family think? He was like, what, demonic? Because could you imagine today, like if a starseed crystal child was born into a Christian family that was very religious and was doing those kind of miracles, they probably would be considered demonic or evil.
Well, you have to look at it through who's viewing it. Okay. When we did the story Night of the Living Dead, and I was telling you what happened there about we're able to bring back, dead people, but we never could stop the decay of their bodies. We could bring them back, but their bodies would continue to decay. Now, I believe Jesus, when he died, he did start to decay, but when he came back, maybe it reversed itself. Maybe he can repair his cells. So I believe as far as Camp Hero was concerned, what if we could heal our bodies? Who says we have to die? Why can't we repair our bodies?
Well, I think it's part of the natural order to keep our population in check.
Well, yes, but who says that we're bound for this planet forever? We don't know if Jesus came from this planet or come from somewhere else. It speaks of him being put on earth, so he came from the heavens. The heavens is space, James. Wherever he came from.
Well, Father Ernetti probably would have been viewing all that too. He would have had all that. The Vatican would have known.
I think he had it. You have to remember, he's just one will he's just one spoke in the wheel here. Okay, there's several people involved in building the machine. Now, once the mission was over, it was turned over to the Vatican for safekeeping. You know, that priest was involved in a lot of exorcisms. You know, like I said, Russell Crowe played him in a movie not that long ago on television. You know, his life went on. He had his church. He had his duties to seek out evil and to rid it. So the Chronovisor kind of fell into history.
So apparently, what the Vatican put the order out to have it dismantled, or no longer. Apparently, it was
the Vatican said that when that priest was in very ill health, Father Braun was going to write a book. He was close to Father Braun, and the Vatican said, if anyone has a chronovisor, they'll be excommunicated from the church. And so that priest recanted his story. I believe he was pressured into doing that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had it right here. Okay, so Father Pellegrino Ernetti confessed to having fabricated the whole story before his death on April 8th, 1994. But this remains hotly contested because von Braun, Fermi, Ernetti, and now Brun, the one that wrote that book, 2002, is now dead. So, yeah, so.
Well, I happen to know he was involved because I met him, and I even worked on build one of the tubes that went in the back of that television. Now he recanted it, but he was, you know, he was aging. He didn't have no place to go. The church gave him shelter. They gave him his medicine, his food. He did not want to be excommunicated. Let me say this, James. When the Men in Black were created in 1947, there was no files. And what they would do, the only people that had files was the church. So the Men in Black, that was the first place they went, was to the Vatican Library to look up all these strange things happening in our skies, these strange creatures that we call demons. I mean, the Jesuits has been doing it for centuries. There's not much difference between a Jesuit and an MIB. They're kind of like they do the same thing. The Jesuits just more religious than the Men in Black. Men in Black can be any religion. Where the Jesuits, they're just Catholics. But they hold the files, so that's what we do. We go over there and research their database.
All right. So we have this. How about this? I'm gonna share my screen. So we have some schematics that let's take a look at these schematics, and then maybe Jimmy, you can confirm whether or not. Did I? Oh, I did. I just had it. There we go. Okay. Let's see here. So we already went over that. The directional finder on the device was allegedly tuned into the specific era one wanted to view. The chronovisor was more of a window into the past of time. So I guess Jimmy's already confirmed they can go in the future, more advanced version. So Ernetti said it worked like a television, catching echoes from days long gone, like floating in space. And so here's a sketch. Can't really read it, it's so blurry. But Jimmy, do you understand what we're looking at here?
Well, yes. Now the box on the top right looks familiar. The other parts of it I'm not familiar with because it was compartmentalized. Okay, I only worked on one part of it.
Maybe it's in Italian too. So, okay.
I'm not sure if that's kind of fuzzy there, but
Okay.
it's set on a metal chassis in the television. You know.
Okay. Maybe if we have any electrical engineers in here that can.
Well, see, I don't. Like I said, I only saw parts of the schematics. Now that might have been something added on to it, but I never seen that one before, but the one on the top right looks a little familiar.
Jimmy, do you think you could build a chronovisor if you were given a budget?
Don't know. Okay. I mean,
we got to use a chronovisor.
It would be a challenge. I believe I probably would not be able to. I mean, I'm familiar with parts of it, but.
So we're going to get Dan Winter involved. Maybe we can, Dan Winter, anyone else? You want Elon Musk on your team? No. Okay. All right. Well, let's just go on. Okay. So Ernetti recounted how he witnessed Marcus Tullianus Cicero speech at the Roman Senate in 63 BC. They recorded his gestures, his annotation, and Ernetti effused how powerful they were with these flights of oratory. Ernetti made an additional increasing bolder claims, such as observing the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. From the founding of the Roman Empire to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Ernetti alleged that he and his team had taken a peek in some of the most important events in the Bible. Probably that's a trick right there. On May 2nd, 1972, an Italian publication called La Dominanza del Corriere published his claim, titled "A Machine That Photographs the Past Has Finally Been Invented." The article covered Ernetti's shocking statements for all of Italy to read. Alongside the admittedly dubious claims, the magazine published an alleged photograph from the chronovisor that Ernetti claimed captured the Romans crucifying Jesus Christ. The 72 article also purported that Ernetti had witnessed the Last Supper and kept a photograph of the biblical event for himself as a souvenir. So here's the article, and I think there's a picture again down below. Okay, Ernetti maintained until his death in 94 that the machine had been hidden away by the Vatican in order to safeguard it from falling into the wrong hands. The Vatican decreed in 1988 that anyone using the instrument of such characteristics would be excommunicated. Shortly before he died, Ernetti wrote a letter admittedly reiterating that the device was real. He claimed that Pope Pius XII forbade us to disclose any details about this device because the machine was very dangerous. It can restrain the freedom of man, right? So we could take away our free will. Oh, go ahead, Jimmy.
The picture on the left is what I saw. That's Jesus on the left. Now there's another statue looks similar, but similar to that, but the man that I saw walking through the streets was the one on the left.
Because the best artists can channel in a way. They can remote view and channel and see. So it's very likely we could see something in sculpture show up.
Let me get back to the Shroud of Turin before we forget about that.
Sure. Go ahead.
I know that religious artifacts are important to people, but I want to differ a little on this. The Shroud of Turin that's on display right now, I doubt that is the one that I brought back. It looks different. I think it kind of falls in with the sword and the spear. You know, there was many people crucified, and I cannot see a cloth that's over 2,000 years old that's still going to be together. I believe it is a burial cloth, but I just don't think it's the one that Jesus was in. I held the one allegedly that Jesus supposedly had been in.
So, what didn't they do a test on the the Shroud of Turin? They found it was David.
They did do tests, and it's classified. I never did give a follow up on that. It'd be great if I ever went back to Area 51. I think I would check in on it if I go back. Was it the actual shroud of Jesus? Like I said, before I could get the blood sample, he was gone. And all we know is what we read out of the Bible, that people saw him up on the road to Damascus walking around.
But Jimmy, you could just readjust the time machine to go back a little bit further, right? And go back and do it again.
Well, I think what we were looking at was the way that Montauk looked at it was like this. A human that can repair his cells. Okay, if we can make ourselves immune from death, I think that's how Camp Hero was looking at it. Not to be disrespectful to anyone's religion, but I don't think they were looking at it as a religious part. Now, certainly the Jesuits were. They certainly were looking at it that way. At least that's what I observed out of them. I've been around Jesuits, and they are hyper-religious people. So it kind of leaves you hanging, you know. I'm between two religions, you know what I mean? So it's just the way that I grew up. But I hope that this talk tonight would give people a little bit of faith.
Oh, okay. Well, here's a little bit more. In 1996, Parculus magazine issued further critiques of Ernetti's claims. The piece questioned why Ernetti hadn't published detailed instructions on how to build the device in order to legitimize his claims. Furthermore, the article revealed how the Chronovisor's design bore a stark resemblance to a similar device in a 1947 sci-fi novel. So, anyway, that's enough of that one. Okay. Let's see. Jimmy, is there anything else we need to go over with the Chronovisor?
Well, we have chronovisors at Area 51, more advanced ones, that works like a rings.
Is that are they like rings inside of rings? I think that's
yeah.
That's actually a looking glass, right?
That one was at Area 51. I've seen that one. I've been in the room with it, and that one is more advanced. One we had was at best it was clunky, but it worked. You know, when you're teleporting a ship through time, the Eldritch. Now, when the test did on the first Eldritch, we had cameras that were on that ship, but when it came back, we knew what happened from what the cameras that were on the ship, but we could never transmit from the ship back to the radar because of bleed over interference. So when we worked on the chronovisor, it was not interfering with Camp Heroes radar. The purpose of the little grays putting up a modified camera, we could look through the chronovisor without firing up Camp Heroes time tunnel. So you can't. It's hard to run a time tunnel and run a chronovisor at the same time because it bleeds over. You see what I'm saying? The frequencies bleed over. So we were able to get it running, and I did witness that. And I don't care if nobody believes me. I have nothing to prove by it. I'm not going to go out and do any shows or ask anybody for money. I experienced it. And I do know what Jesus looks like. So I'm not a very religious person, but I'm spiritual.
Do you remember what it looks like? So on the chronovisor, that is. So
yeah,
I saw. What color eyes did he have?
Brown.
And did he have blonde hair?
No.
Probably brown hair.
No. When I saw him, he was coming down the street. He was carrying the cross, and he had been whipped. In fact, his lung is swelled up. He was bleeding internally in his lung, and he died of complications from a collapsed lung.
Oh wow! Like fluid in his lungs.
Yeah, he was drowning.
Drowned to death.
In his lungs. Now, when the Roman guard pierced him, clear liquid came out onto the spear of destiny. Okay, but when people talk about the spear of destiny, it is magnetized. Now that I do know. I'm not sure how I know that. Being on the Eldridge around their microwave equipment has damaged my ability to remote view. I just don't. I can't do it like I did when I was a kid. But if it's ever found, it would be magnetized. That I can tell you that.
Jimmy, so do you think from their perspective, they see like an orb when the chronovisor is on viewing from a distance in time?
Rephrase that, please.
The person that you're viewing on the screen, can they view you back as like an orb? Do they witness anything like that?
I did not see an orb looking at him through the TV. The TV's in black and white. It was in silent mode. Now, somebody that can read lips, like the priest was talking about hearing the speech, the Roman speech, from the Senate, they can read lips. So I think the first time that you have somebody reading lips, a lip reader. I do think they did get the sound up later. They got the sound up, but I think the sound didn't come up to about 7 or 8 years later, because I was back at the Vatican several years later, and they did have sound. At that point, that was like 7 or 8 years later. But the first few years, it didn't have sound.
And actually, this was a great comment, Teresa. Thank you. So I think they actually did analyze the sample of blood, right? Because I'm not going to say it was Swirlo, but maybe there was somebody who asked Jesus for his blood, And I think Jesus responded that you can have my blood, but you're not allowed to kill me, because they were also had a pistol, right? So they brought the blood sample back to Montauk, and they found that it was like reversing all the MK Ultra. So they found that they couldn't really use it for any of their military applications because it was healing everybody. Right, Jimmy? Do you know anything about that?
I'm sorry. Go through it again, but go through it slow, James.
Slower,
slower, but more precise.
There might have been someone like Swerdlow or him that would have went back in time and asked Jesus. He was on a mission for his blood, right? Oh, was it that Larry Solars? Remember? Does anybody remember Larry Solars or Larry James? Trying to remember. But Solar, yeah, one of those two. I think they were like together. But they said that so they brought the blood sample back, right? Because Jesus said, you can have my blood, but you're not allowed to kill me because it's not my time. And so they brought the sample blood back, and they found that it was healing people, right, Jimmy? Like because all these what do you call it? Chrononauts are subjected to extreme amounts of MK Ultra, and it was actually like reversing it all and healing them, so they wouldn't be good assets anymore for their experiments.
Let me say something, James. When you teleport something through Camp Hero, the purpose of getting the blood before the death and after the death, they wanted to see if teleporting it affected the blood samples. Okay. You have to remember you have microwaves running. So the microwaves could have contaminated the blood. Okay. Now, that would be my first guess. Now, when I was at Camp Comet out at Nellis Air Force Base, I've actually seen a man to grow an arm. His arm was amputated, and he was growing an arm. Now, whether that blood was brought to Camp Comet, that's a good question. So I don't know what the vial blood was brought back. I had heard that a vial of blood was brought back. But it's, like I said, it's real compartmentized. And when I ran across that at Camp Hero, that was simply by chance several years later. But yeah, it probably could have come from Jesus.
Oh, wow. So I guess the blood of Jesus may not necessarily save you, but maybe heal you.
Well, if he's able to raise himself, now, right before the rock allegedly moved, I saw a beam of light come out of the sky. But you have to look at it this way. You couldn't see because of the outline of the moon. It's an eclipse going on. There was strangeness going on in deep space because something had been out there, a spacecraft, or maybe, but I couldn't see it. From everything was blood red, and then it turned royal blue. So it's one thing to have an eclipse and get dark. It's a totally another thing to have blue and red colors. That's not normal. That's not normal.
Well, I have this one. This is from a remote viewing session because when I was, I guess I'll tell you. It's kind of like a private thing, but I used to get visions of seeing Jesus on the cross before I was awakened into all this other stuff. I was indoctrinated, but so I believe I had a lifetime back then when I was very close to Jesus. I was like his scribe, and I would help usher like the crowds and give them food and stuff. But let's see here. So I was constantly trying to raise money, constantly traveling, security, managing crowds. I was very happy to have nothing. I had like a friar robes on, hairy legs. I'm not gonna get all too much details. Muscular. I was carrying this manuscript, watching the crowds. So let's see here. So then, so when they put him on the cross, the crowds were trying to take him, like his disciples were trying to protect him, but Jesus said, just let him, let the Roman soldiers take him. But the mass, when he was actually crucified, there were two other crosses next to him, and it looks like one of them was already dead and the other was near death when they put him on the cross. The crowds were massive, and it looks really kind of like sandy. Was it kind of, Jimmy, did it look really sandy there where you were?
Yeah, kind of like very similar to New Mexico scrub brush. That was the first thing that I noticed. It was just rough terrain.
So Jesus was barefooted. Well, I guess, they put a nail right through, crucified him, but he had this dirty white looking lion cloth thing on his crotch, but not much else. The people are chanting Isu, Isu, Isu. There are thousands of people here. It seems like there were multiple time travelers. The Nazis visited from the 1930s, the U.S. military in the late 1960s. That's probably you, Jimmy. The U.S. Navy in the 1950s, even China. We had like 15 different timelines. So the whole.
Well, I think there's probably have been other time travelers that's done it. I think it goes back to who am I, where I come from, and what happens to me when I die. And I think that's a universal question. And there's people who have time machines, and the first thing they told me at Camp Hero was not to interfere with history. And that is a very hard thing to do. But I was in that group where we did not interfere with history. We studied it. And I think it made me better.
But Jimmy, weren't there some people at Montauk that used the time travel device to arrange a means for their family, their bloodlines to have more money?
Yes. There were people that did. The Titanic was one. We had someone that had a relative that had stock in the White Ship line. That was definitely a turning point for me. When you start changing history, and when I see when people become political, who wants to be the president or whatever, and we can't interfere with these elections. We just can't do that, and it's real hard. But I do believe we're not to interfere. It's strictly to record, to learn, and I'm thinking that that's one of the reasons why extraterrestrials may have a dim view of us, because we haven't learned yet to be good students.
So, Jimmy, that probably means that you shouldn't go back in time and try to resurrect the Confederacy. We've had other previous videos, right? Right, Jimmy?
I didn't say not resurrect it. I said not to interfere with it. And it was interfered with through Operation Southern Cross. So I'm all for putting back what was before. Other words, our history has been tinkered with. Our religion has been tinkered with. Okay. Mankind cannot mature. We have to go through these experiences, and we can't. If we start tinkering with the timeline, we're not good students. And that's one other reason why the extraterrestrials probably have a dim view of us. We haven't learned yet. And that's so sad, because we may have been able to take our place amongst the stars had people learned.
Well, but Jimmy, what if Eisenhower followed Valiant Thor's advice to allow the Venusians to help protect the United States? Because I know he wanted to keep the nuclear weapons to go after the Greys, right? Their underground facilities.
I think that had Eisenhower taken the advice that he was given, we wouldn't be in the problems we're at now.
So if he accepted Valiant Thor's offer,
he should have done that. I know Valiant. I've been around him a little, and he means well, and we should have been much more careful. But he gave some good advice, and I wish, and I'm very sad that we're in the state of affairs we are in now, but I had nothing to do with that. I've time jumped and been involved in different wars, but when you're thrown into something like that, you're forced to fight.
All right. Well, I think that might be it. Oh, wait. No, there's some more. Let's see here. We were talking about Noah's Ark or the Ark of Covenant. Did you ever chronovisor that? Either of those two?
I didn't have to chronovise it. I've been there when it was open.
Which one?
The Ark.
Well, I know, but both from Arks. Is it Noah's Ark or the Ark of Covenant?
The Ark of Covenant. So, I've seen it opened, and I've seen reptilians come out, not human spirits, but reptilians. Now, if you watch the movie Indiana Jones, it shows spirits coming out. That's not what I saw. I saw hideous creatures that came out and flew around. They were reptilian. And the best thing to do is to close your eyes, because what they try to do is mind control.
So, a quick question. So, why would the builder of the Ark of Covenant, well, was that Moses who did that? Somebody know, but yeah, why would they build a portal to one of these astral hells? Or yeah, what do you think about that, Jimmy?
I think that when you have you can bring a religion up over stuff like this. If you have these astral beings, these spirits, and these spirits it's like a moth. Look at a light bulb. These moths just fly around a light bulb, and we are human beings. We're electrical beings. When we die, our spirits turns to orbs about the size of a baseball, and it ascends into the heavens. So these creatures, they want to be around the light. So what was in the ark was basically these reptilians, and it's probably some type of cult from the early ages of time, and they were carrying them around in this ark. But it doesn't mean that just because they carried it that it was something good, James. What they were carrying was reptilians in the ark.
Wow. I should I'll just share my screen. I know we probably need to call it a day here, but here's is it Chris Tucker over there? No, that's probably not really good. Let me make this a little bit bigger so everybody can see. Perfect replicant of the Ark of Covenant, 2,700 hours of labor, 6 pounds of gold. This is in Mar-a-Lago. What do you think about that?
It was a wood box covered in gold, James.
Wood box. So it wasn't as fancy as what we're seeing here. This is artistic.
It was similar to it, but if it was a gold box, you couldn't pick it up. They carry this thing with them all through the desert. It was a wood box that they had layered it with gold, and it had sand in it. And when the lid was taken off of the ark, I saw sand, and when they started sticking their hands in the sand and picking the hand up like sand running through your fingers, that's when these spirits started coming up, and it looked like rain clouds, just real black sky. The room got kind of dark, like dark smoke in it. But that's what I saw.
And
but
Adam mentioned the Ark of Gabriel too.
Well, I mean, let's get back on the chronovisor.
Okay.
But
well, I was just going through the questions we had from the audience.
Yes. I mean, I want to be helpful for those. I'm not trying to be spiritual. I'm trying to explain what was observed, and how each person takes their religion is very private. I'm not here to recruit anybody to any religion. I'm simply telling what I experienced tonight.
Thank you. So Ricky commented, it was Vannevar Bush, the founder of Raytheon. He was also a member of MJ12. So it was very likely Raytheon was given technology probably from the Roswell, right? I guess, when was Raytheon founded? Probably after 47.
I became involved with Raytheon briefly. I worked a little with EG&G Corporation out at just south of China, just out at China Lake.
Oh wow!
And EG&G was bought out by Raytheon. I was out there when Bob Lazar got in trouble.
Oh wow! We'll have to talk about that another time.
Yes.
Somebody's asked about Michael Aquino.
I knew Michael Aquino. He had a lot to do with Kathy O'Brien. I was associated with Kathy O'Brien for most of my career.
Well, thank you for your. Wait, I was going to say thank you for your service, but then maybe not that type of service. But hopefully that was a wholesome, kosher relationships.
I'm sorry, you asking me something?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I guess I am asking. Was it a positive interaction or negative?
Oh, for what?
Between Kathy oh god, no, it wouldn't be positive, right? Kathy O'Brien and Aquino.
No, Aquino. If you ever watch the movie Children of the Corn, with I think it stars who was that movie star? I know her so good. Darn, the one that plays Sarah Connor.
The Terminator movies.
Yeah.
Was it John Connor and was sent back in
No,
time?
no. The actress in it.
Oh, well,
But
the actress who played Sarah Connor.
yeah.
And the Terminator. Well, we have actually 3 different actresses who played it. We have Linda Hamilton.
Linda Hamilton. That's what I was trying to say. I don't know why I froze up on that. I've been knowing Linda ever since she was a teenager. But Michael Quino, if you watch the movie Children of the Corn, you'll see a little preacher boy in there that wears a hat. That show is based off of Michael Quino when he was a child. But getting back to Kathy O'Brien, I've been knowing Kathy since she was 4 years old, and but she was my sidekick. I like Kathy. I really miss her, but the relationship between her and Michael Quino, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good one. He used her a lot. That's not any of my doing, but he was just he came over from the Army, the psychological unit. He's in psychological warfare. He used all that on Kathy.
That's too bad. Is Kathy still alive? Actually, I think she is.
I think she is. I've been trying to get a hold of her, but I just never found her.
It was Arizona Wilder. Did anybody? Nobody got back to us on that. If she's still alive, but
yeah, I'm looking for Arizona Wilder. Somebody sees her.
Okay.
I talked to her husband, but she was out, and the next thing I knew, her husband was dead. I lost contact with him.
Oh. Okay, last question. Is Weyland Corporation researching xenomorphs?
Yes.
And Jimmy, did you go into the future where this was taking place?
Yes.
So
I knew Mr. Weyland.
Because Weyland Corporation, there's like a wiki about all that. Do you think that's like actually a documentary, that wiki like when it was founded?
I think it's unusual that it did show up. Now, when I worked for them, it's just the Weyland Corporation, and then Utani came in after that, and the two merged. But I was there when both of them was before the two came together and after the two came together. Mr. Weyland's a good man. I liked him.
So it says Weyland Corporation was founded in 2012 by Sir Peter Weyland. So this guy must be like living in the breakaway, or maybe those dates are not accurate.
Well, yes, but we want to get back on the Chronovisor, James.
Well, I don't have any more questions about the Chronovisor.
Well, you want to go ahead and call it a night then?
All right, then. Well, Jimmy, thank you very much for coming on here, and thank you, audience members. We actually had a really good turnout. I know. I'm sorry, guys. I know I need to give you better notice. It's just really difficult. I'm putting on a conference, so we have 2 weeks to go, and I would love to meet you in person in St. Pete, Florida. The tickets are very affordable. Of course, I do have a free day available too. So I need donations to help it happen, because we're doing like a memorial service for some of our Secret Space Program veterans and also those in the disclosure community. And that's going to be 12 to 1 on that Saturday, July 13th. If you want to learn more about it, go to timelineofdisclosure.com. And if you're not able to come, we have a live stream option. We also have an option where you can send donations. I've talked about this before in other shows, what we had to go through to pull this off. So we could always use your help. And if you want to learn more about some of the work that I do as a super soldier, you can get my book, Neological Tech. It's called Lone Wolf. And get yourself a meditation cube to help you relax. And those are actually, I help put those things together. So, all right. Well, I guess that's it, Jimmy. We'll see you all next time. Jimmy?
Yes.
Final words?
I enjoyed talking to you tonight, James. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, I'm looking for a sponsor, a corporate sponsor. Just get a hold of James, and then James get a hold of me. That's all you need to know.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jessica, for the message here. We will all see you later. Goodbye, everybody. Have a wonderful day, wherever it may be. Oh, actually, I have to take this off. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're getting there. Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.